to this. There we go. Ethan, welcome. We're so happy to have you here.
It's so great to talk to you again. Hi, Kelly. Hi, Ivana. How are you all?
Hi,
And
good,
everybody
welcome
else I
back.
know on here.
We were just saying that you're our first repeat author, and we have not had any other authors come back before, but you're just so lovely, and we adored this book, and we adore you, and we're so, so glad to have you back.
Well, you're all the best, and thanks for all your support. Do I get like a jacket with like a two stitched on it then? That
Ooh.
It's Saturday
I
Night Live. We
yeah,
need a
like Saturday
second
Night Live kind of.
logo.
I know Michelle, one of our readers, has been saying we need some merch. I'm like, we do. We do need some merch.
Yeah.
Aw. Well,
Well,
we're
thanks for having me, and thanks for all the support you all show me.
yes, we were saying that when we chatted with you about A Quiet Life a couple years ago, that you were talking that you were in the works for this book. And I don't know if it had a title at the time or where you were at in the process, but it's so cool to hear about the book from the beginning of it and then to see how long it takes to really like get out in the world. But it's here.
It's here. It's a great feeling. It's been a nice summer with it. This was my first summer book launch. Usually, the other two were both out in November, so I had to kind of refigure things out how it all worked.
Yeah. How has your book tour gone?
It's been nice. It's finally just winding down. So it's been kind of. I went to Virginia last week, and I have mostly book clubs now, so it's nice. And I'm going to North Carolina to be in conversation with another author in a week or two, maybe. September 30th, I think I go. I take it like day by day. So I look at my schedule. Okay, that's what's coming.
Mhm. Yeah, yes. Well, we're grateful for your time. And we're so excited to chat with you more.
No, I couldn't wait. I was excited all day for this.
Oh, oh, thanks. We were talking in our book club about the Rehoboth beach setting and how this is very personal to you, and the story is really an ode to your hometown. Will you talk to us a little bit about how you chose to set this book here in your town and what that was like for you?
Well, I always wanted to do a book in Rehoboth Beach because I felt like I needed to share the magic of it with somebody because I love it here so much. My family loves it here. We have I mean we have not only the beach but the boardwalk, but we also have such a beautiful downtown. We have wooded areas, we have country. It really is from almost like a cinematic perspective. It has everything. Um, so I was really I lost Kelly. Oh, there you
Oh, sorry.
are. Yeah, Zoom always does that. It shifts around while I'm teaching and everything.
Oh,
Um, so I always wanted to set something here, but I had to find the right story. And at first, I was trying to do almost like a little hope thing that I had all these different stories set in Delaware beaches, and they were all kind of interconnecting. But it was getting really complicated, and it was getting kind of there were too many stories, and one character was going to New York City, and I thought, what am I doing? Just let's have a one singular character, one singular kind of situation. So it was the day before Thanksgiving. I think that would be 2021, November 2021, the day before Thanksgiving, where I scrapped everything and kind of started fresh. And that's the morning the book starts. So I kind of just saw this guy outside his family restaurant, and he thought, I don't know if I could do this anymore. And that really was the beginning of the book and where it started. And it was actually after I had scrapped all those pages that weren't working, all those different stories, it actually came not perfectly smoothly, but much more smoothly. It was actually a pleasant, as far as the different books go, they're like your kids, they're all different how they come out. It kind of went smoothly, I think.
I'm sure it was so hard to scrap all of those other.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much that I've left behind over the years. And you feel like you have to throw out the bad pages in order to get to the good ones. But yeah, you can't think of it from like a economic standpoint about or like per hour kind of thing or a wage kind of thing. You just have to think of it as you had to write through that stuff to get to the better stuff. But yeah, I love Rehoboth Beach, and it really, I mean, I have it in the dedication that's town that saved us. And I feel like it did in a lot of ways. It's just been such a dream come true to finally live here all these after all these years.
Yeah, your love for the town just really comes through in the story. And so I loved the Instagram post too that you had up of Rehoboth Beach in the wintertime that you had, I think, like posted around Christmas with all of the lights up and things like that. Like, how beautiful.
It really, and it really is. I mean, there are definitely parts about it. Like, my editor said she might come for the book launch. And you know, when somebody says they're going to come to your house, you start seeing it through a different point of view and you're getting nervous. Because there are some parts that are imperfect and it gets really crowded in the summer and all those things. But just from sometimes I just look around and I think, I can't believe we get to live here. It's just so, there's great people and great restaurants and great everything, great sights.
Hmm. Yeah, one of our readers is from Celia. I think she said maybe somewhere in New Jersey, and she was calling this time of year right now local summer.
I hear that a lot from Jersey people say that a lot, and I'm using that now too, that this is local summer. Our parking meters just went away a couple days ago, and it's just so nice. Yeah, it's and every traffic we had to run out tonight, and it was just so much easier than it has been lately. So
I
I
bet.
like that term, Celia.
Yeah.
Yes, best time of the year.
Me
Is it the kind of town where everybody knows everybody? Is it that small or is it not?
You know, there are a lot of, we do you do start to, like, for so long we came here and we never knew anybody, but then I started teaching here and then all of a sudden that changes everything, that you go into a restaurant and there's a former student working there. And then especially joining the Writers Guild about 14 years ago, I started to meet a lot of people through that. But for so long, because there are, I mean, you could go into town and not know anybody at some on a busy July night because a lot of them are tourists, but it is kind of a small world that all of a sudden you do start to make connections, or you hear a certain name and you're like, oh, that's a local name, or just ways like that.
Yeah.
Were any of the
Beautiful.
people
The ice
in,
cream cone.
oh, sorry, go ahead. What'd you say,
No,
Ivana?
there was one picture posted like, it was the ice cream cone, and you were there and you were on the boardwalk, and it was just like exactly what I imagined it to look like.
Oh, yeah, like the Core Brothers ice cream. Yeah. Yeah, it's perfect.
Were
Is my
any,
connection okay?
yes, you're good.
Okay.
You're good. Ivana, I think you were cutting out a little bit. I think it was on her end, but I could be wrong. Oh yeah. It's Ivana. Sorry, Ivana. Were any of the people based off of, or any of the characters based off of people in Rehoboth Beach?
So no one's I get asked that a lot about characters if I take, and I don't think I've ever taken somebody directly as a character, but I think, like, when I hear Nicole talk, I know it's somebody that I know, and I know her voice is similar to somebody I know. It's from around here, so not specifically. I think all the characters end up being kind of a an amalgamation of, they talk a certain way, but then they look a different way, and I think it ends up being a lot more combinations that way.
Yeah, I could see that. I wasn't sure if Jack was like just someone in town. So,
It's a weird thing how the characters will just come to you, and then it's hard to describe to somebody, but all of a sudden you know them and you know the way they get ready in the morning, and you know the way they greet their cat when they come in the house, and it's it's hard to explain except that it's just they become these real people.
yeah, yeah. How long, you mentioned that each book kind of takes its own time and is like a child in its own ways and complexities. How long did it take you to write this book, and what was different about it from your other books? I know a lot of us here have read, multiple of your books, and so we're just kind of curious, like, how does that process look now that you've got a few under your belt? Is it easier in some ways? Is it harder in others?
You know, I think that is what I've learned, is that it never gets to that point where you can phone it in. It never gets to that. And rightly so. You wouldn't want it to be to that point because it just wouldn't feel authentic. But I'm always looking to master something and get to that point where I can just kind of do it mindlessly. But each book it just presents its own challenges. I think A Quiet Life was the hardest book in revision because the timelines of the three characters were so, you really had to get that right. You had to get the way they would overlap and intersect. You had to make sure everything was aligned properly, and that was a completely different ending. But this one, once I wrote all the all the kind of other book, and I started this one, I think you have these moments where you feel like it's done, and then you get it back from your agent, and then you fix it again, and then you get it back from your editor, and you fix it again and again. So I think I thought this was done in April, so like 5, 6 months later, which was really fast for a book. I'm usually not that fast. But then it wasn't really done until October and November. So
Shoot.
yeah, there's like kind of all these false floors along the way that you feel like, okay, it's all done, and then no, no, no.
Yeah. Well, Rebecca, this might be a good time for you to ask
Hi,
your
Rebecca.
Hey, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good. To ask the question I brought up earlier.
Yeah, about the ending.
Okay, well, he knows. I wrote to you about how I said I actually loved the book because for the first time in a long time, it didn't wrap up in a pretty bow. And you're like, um, actually, we changed it at the ninth hour and or the 11th hour, and here's how it really ends. And what's interesting about that is I jumped in on the pre-Zoom when Kelly was asking the group about Patrick and the ending, and I said, "Oh, I think he changed it." But the question in the back of the book still refers to the original non-meeting. Is that correct?
Oops, oh, okay. I didn't know, like the study group guy, the
So Kelly
Yeah.
book club.
might grab the question here.
Okay, so topics for discussion. The question 12.
No.
I was like, wait, because then I was confused. It's been a few months since I read it, and I was going through these questions, and I was like, but wait a minute. So, question 12 says, why do you think Patrick is so resistant to the idea of meeting Jack? Do you think they might meet in the future? So,
Uh-huh.
Oh.
so then I
Uh,
was like, wait, did they not? Because I kind of, or did they? Like, where
So
did
and
it?
that's
I
what
just out of so I did send Kelly the thing you sent me, but it was so long ago already, we both forgot.
So we're like, what's happening? Because we both
yeah,
read
so
arcs. And so, yeah, can you talk to us a little bit about like the
the
original
process.
ending, how it actually ended up ending, and then how you got there?
Yeah, so the book comes back to you a couple times. It's like the first pass pages, the second pass pages, and then I think between the second and the third, maybe it goes to the arc. It already gets printed in galley form. So that's why they say on the galley, like there's still might be mistakes in there, things like
Yeah.
that. Yeah, so we were doing the final changes on it, and I was looking at that last paragraph, and it was driving me crazy. I kept reading it over and over, and sometimes you have to just let the book be done. But a voice was telling me, I thought, there's something I don't like about it. He's in the downtown, he's fall, he's kind of free. He decided to buy the stationery. He's going to reach out to Patrick one more time. But something about it, I thought, I need something else here. And all of a sudden, I said, all right, he's crossing the street, and a guy that looks like him is coming toward him. And I think I texted my editor and I said, am I allowed to do this change this late? And she said, yeah, let's do it. But it really was, I did get so many people, like friends of mine would say, oh, I'm so glad you didn't end it in a cheesy way where like the sun showed up. And I was like, oh no. But I did, but there's so many moving parts along the production. Like the book club guide is something completely separate that someone else usually does. So
Hmm.
yeah, I didn't realize that question. I mean, it's kind of still accurate because we don't know for sure it is Patrick. I
Right,
mean, you
true.
guys don't know for sure. You
Yeah.
guys don't know for sure. So it is kind of accurate, but yeah, that's what happened. It was a very 11.5 hour change.
I love that. I
So
love that you just give like a little hope, if you will, you know.
Yeah.
is it just the last paragraph?
Just the
Is
last
that
sentence. Yeah, it's
oh,
just the last
okay? Because
paragraph
then
is, I think,
okay.
like
It's
95% the
mostly the
same.
same.
Yeah, it's just
Perfect.
that
Okay.
last sentence. It was
Gotcha.
Can I
driving me
ask you
crazy.
real quick too? Is it easier to write from one point of view versus your other books where there's multiple storylines that connect at the end?
I think there's good things and bad things about it. I think the multiple points of view, you can get a more full story and you don't have to get too deeply into each character. So A Little Hope was actually kind of pleasant to write that way, that I could just jump from one character and some time had passed to the next one. Um, but when you're with one character, you can't hide from anything. You really have to go deeply into every single thing, and you don't want it to get monotonous, but you do, I think you do have to explore their psyche more than when you're doing 12 characters like A Little Hope has. So it was nice though, just being with one comfortable singular character.
Mhm. Yeah. Rebecca, did you have a follow-up question or you that was it? Okay. Okay. All of your books really focus on the importance of community and how when we are at these valleys in our life, it's other people that really buoy us and just take us along with them and really enhance our life. That's something like I think, this thread throughout your stories that I've picked up on. Will you talk a little bit more about this theme? Was that intentional? Is that something that it just resonates with you? Or I'm just wondering if you talk more about that.
I think sometimes that's a great question. I think you find out what your values are from reading a book, and I guess that is something that is important to me. And I think in teaching, a classroom has to have community to it. You have to make sure the students are feeling comfortable around each other to share things, whether it's psychology and they're sharing something from their past, or whether it's writing and they're critiquing each other's work. So I think the whole idea of community is important to me. Also living in Delaware, a lot of transplants are in Delaware. Like we don't have immediate family living around us, so you do have to have kind of a found family, because we miss that. Like when we are in Pennsylvania, we can have any night of the week we can have family members over, and we like to entertain and do things like that. So being in Delaware, we have kind of a found family and friends that you can have over that way. So I think that is something I wouldn't know that. I wouldn't say that I'm setting out to write a book that shows that, but I think it is an important thing to me of the way people show up for one another in the expected and in the unexpected moments.
Yeah, I think just really your books all highlight what beauty can be found when we allow ourselves to be a little bit vulnerable and like let other people into like the messiness of our own lives.
Yeah, and I think a restaurant especially has so much of that, it's this odd found family that you end up like an 18-year-old and a 55-year-old end up being best friends in a restaurant setting, just because these extraordinary circumstances bring them together. And it's such a grueling job, I think, that you have to kind of have allies in it, and you have to feel like you're with people who can cover for you and with people who will keep you going.
Yeah, our reader friend Kelly was saying that her brother owned a restaurant and she kind of felt the same way that you captured this so well because just it is just grueling and hard work and those are the people that you're with on holidays and like when you don't want to be there and everyone else is doing something else and you're at the restaurant. So
Yeah, I'm glad that resonated, Kelly. Yeah, and I think that there's a lot of jobs like that. Like my mom was a nurse, so and we would have that same thing. Like we would have to open our Christmas gifts at 6 o'clock in the morning before she left for her shift, because she'd have to be gone for certain holidays like that. Yeah, so I think restaurants are just never ending sometimes.
we were wondering in our group chat, do you have any friends or family that work in the restaurant industry? Sarah mentioned that in your acknowledgments you named somebody named Scott. Is Scott a friend or like was he part of your research? Like, well, for the book, what did that look like?
Yeah, so Scott was part of my research. Scott Mumford owns a restaurant in Fenwick Island, which is about like 25 minutes away from Rehoboth. It's on the way to Ocean City, Maryland. Um, and we've gone, and that's a family restaurant, and we've gone there for a lot of years. Our kids really like it there. It's just one of those traditional places that's only open in the summer, and they have like pies there and like turkey dinner, like scallops, things like that that your grandparents would get, and then your parents would get, and then you decide you need to get them too. It's just that traditional kind of thing. But I wanted to do that restaurant research because I worked in fast food when I was 16, and I was a busboy before that. So I hadn't had any current current restaurant experience in the last what 30 odd years or so. So I reached out to Scott. That was the only family restaurant I could think of because I had a character who had a restaurant in his family for 3 generations. And he got back to me right away, and it was so helpful. We had a phone call, then we texted a few times. Then he called me and he said, "I'm going to be at the restaurant in the off season. It was closed." He said, I'll give you a tour." So it was just a writer's dream. I mean, you want your stuff to be authentic, and I mean, as much as I try to resist research, I would never be able to write a piece during like World War II because that would just the research involved would just drive me batty, I think. But you still want it to be authentic. So Scott was just absolutely invaluable to this book. I mean, even things like turkey portions, and I even said like how many people could he have during a Thanksgiving seating, and he was just so good. I even asked him how could an employee steal from you, and he was helpful for that. So really a dream.
Oh, interesting. That is so, so cool. That's fun research.
It is, and it's I mean it definitely made I don't think I could have done the book without it.
Oh, how long were you there, like interviewing with him or kind of touring?
So we had several phone calls, and then when I was teaching that day, and he said I could come after that, after I was teaching. So I was there maybe an hour and a half, but he showed me like, he said, "This is the room where I have a couch, and if I can, in the summer, I can sleep for 15 minutes, I'm happy." Or this is where I look out at the bay because I'm just so exhausted and I need some beauty in my life. So he showed me all those things. He had a paper, like a prep sheet for to give to the crew, like when they're getting things ready. And I said, "Oh, I would love that." He ripped it right off the clipboard and gave it to me. So really, I mean, you can only dream about that kind of research.
Yeah.
Because it's hard to explain your job as a writer to say to somebody, "Can you tell me the intimate details of your profession in order for me to make it work in a book?" It's hard to
Yeah.
get that across sometimes. Like in A Quiet Life, I needed the police stuff for the kidnapping, and we had 3 state troopers that were renting a house down the street from us. So one day, my wife and I were out for a walk, and the one guy was coming out. I said, "Wait, I got to talk to this guy quick." And I just stood out there on the road, and I had my cell phone, and I quick asked him questions, and he was really, really cooperative, really, really kind about it.
Huh. Did Scott make you some food while you were visiting?
No, so the restaurant was closed. I
Oh, it was
didn't
the
get to
off
have any.
season. Okay.
But yeah, but I've gone back there a lot of times since the book has been out, and
Yeah.
we always we always take pie home when we're there and things like that.
Oh, nice, nice. Well, The Same Bright Stars really speaks to, I think, just like the scary concept of change and how we would all rather sometimes just kind of stay in our ruts rather than taking this like leap of faith or this drastic step forward to make a change and come out of our comfort zone. I'm wondering if you would talk a little bit more about that. Is that something that you kind of felt as an author even and a teacher, or like where does that land for you?
I think it is just something that it's the human condition that we would because Jack knows in the beginning, he knows I have to change. I can't do this anymore. But all right, if not this, what? I mean, I know this. I know how to do it. I'm obviously half decent at it. And I have this dear kind of crew that is my family. So he does, that's why he doesn't know that it's his decision in the beginning. He thinks he can do that. He thinks he might have to. Um, yeah, I think that it's just not really for me per se, because I don't think my life has changed that much with becoming an author. I'm still allowed to keep like it doesn't really not like becoming president or something that you have Secret Service now or I mean everything is very much the same for me and I just have to I always had to find time to write and I still have to do that. But I think anytime you want something to get better, you do have to take risks. And I think yeah, I would say my wife and I we took a lot of risks in our life with things that other people weren't doing. And it is uncomfortable sometimes, and it's something you in order to get happiness you have to do.
Hmm. I think that's right.
And that's like what we were thinking next to ask you, because now that you've been writing for these years, do you feel like you've changed? How do you feel like you're different from, who you were when you wrote your first book?
I don't think so. I mean, it's not writing fame, or I wouldn't even call it fame, but writing, being a writer, being a published writer is so different from anything else because you really don't get recognized on the street or anything like that. So I think my life has stayed pretty much the same. It's strange to have an audience now. I mean, because for so many years from being to I wanted to be a writer since I was 7, but I mean, even when I was in college, I thought, all right, I'll be a novelist. So from 18 till my early 40s, I mean, I just wrote in in kind of isolation and silence. So it is interesting to have an audience. It is interesting when someone says, oh, that's an Ethan Joella book, or that's I'm an auto buy person. I mean, that's really, I sometimes I just can't believe that. It's just so touching to me. And that's why I think we're so lucky to have Instagram or places like that where you can connect with readers. But that's changed, and that's just I think that's changed in a very nice, pleasant way. I'm just so touched by all of
I think I'd recognize you on the street. I'm pretty sure.
that.
I'm pretty sure. Can I have your autograph?
Although I did have a driveway incident yesterday, which was very, very strange. I was coming out to the driveway. We were going to Pennsylvania just for the day because my brother was visiting. Um, and a lady was out there and she was like, I heard you're a writer. I would really like to get coffee with you sometime. And that was very odd. And that it was, I mean, she was very sweet and very nice, but I had no idea who she was. And she was like walking up my driveway, and I mean, I didn't feel fear for my life or anything, but um, it's odd when people know you and you don't know, you don't know who they are.
She was a driveway intruder. Yep.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Jessica said in the chat, to me, writers are celebrities, and I'm amazed that they aren't recognized all the time in real life.
Oh, yeah, it's strange. I don't think I've never had it where I've seen someone reading my book out. That is my dream, to like be on a plane and see somebody read, or be on the beach and see somebody reading it. That would be like, then I would feel like I really made it if I if I saw that
Man,
situation. But
you haven't seen your book in the wild. Man.
yeah, no. I mean, I think one time I was out at Browse About, and I was there signing books like behind the counter, and this one lady was there and she was saying, I really love this book I just bought by Ethan Joella. And I was like, hi. But that was probably the only time where that's happened.
Man. Well, don't the Bidens live in so you got to get Jill Biden out there. We hosted Chris Whitaker last month, and I guess like Jill Biden was reading All the Colors of the Dark, his book, and so it went like
Well, I know, and she's gone into our local bookstore, and I know the owner has given her my book. So recently there was a beach picture of the Bidens there, and I thought, I was like zooming in. I thought that kind of looks like the same. It wasn't. It was
Oh
not.
man.
We did a deep forensic analysis, and it was not. But
It's
So
bound
funny.
maybe
to
one day.
happen.
Yeah.
You're gonna see it one day where
One day that
someone's
would be
just
nice.
reading it.
Yeah, I would love that. Or see like Sarah Jessica Parker with it like hanging out of her tote bag or something. I would love to see something like
Oh, that would be amazing. Well, one of the
Kristen has
things.
a
Oh, go ahead.
question. No,
Oh
sorry.
yeah,
Kristen has
Kristen.
a
Yes, please.
Yeah, sorry, I just didn't want to interrupt. Why can't I lower it? There we go. So, Ethan, I love all your books. I have them all sitting out in my
Thanks,
in my
Kristen.
backyard right now because I want to try and take a picture with leaves somewhere. Um, but I took a and before I ask my question, I want to tell you that one of the things I love about your writing, because I've read all three of them, is how you just tell stories of ordinary people, is how I feel about it. And we all have stories, we all have histories, we all have, things going on in our lives. And I just love how to me, it seems like all three of your books are stories of ordinary people and kind of shows that meaning of just our regular everyday lives. So I really love that. Um,
Thank you, Kristen.
but I took a couple pictures of pages while I was reading just because I didn't feel like writing anything down. And right about two-thirds of the way through, there's a really short chapter. Well, I guess a lot of the chapters were short, but where it's on page 215 and through 217. And Jack is it says he's walking back to the restaurant and he sees that lady who has the cat named Craig.
Yeah.
Craig is
Marky.
the lady. Is the girl the woman's name Marky? Oh yeah,
Yeah.
Marky. Okay. And they're talking and I was kind of curious about her just as the appearance. But then there was a line at the end of that chapter that says, he stands there in the bright day and doesn't even know himself. And I was just kind of curious about that line because to me, it kind of, well, summarized a lot of this, him and what he was going through and trying to figure out where he was headed next. But that line just really jumped out at me. And I was just curious. I don't know if you have anything to add about that or if that character Marky, I don't know. I was just kind of curious. That chapter seemed interesting to me and I'm not being very articulate, but curious if you had anything to add to that, especially that line about doesn't even know himself. I don't know.
Well, I think, and at that point in the book, he is headed toward where Deldine is going to take it over, and but he's still. I think at that moment, he still doesn't feel like he's gotten anywhere. I think he thought selling the restaurant would bring this big solution, and he would be on his way to something. And I think he has that discovery, and and writing is so much about discovery, and that's what I really am trying to do is put the characters into situations and not to know what happens, to kind of to see what happens, to see what unfolds for them, and to have that discovery. So I think that is a discovery there that he still doesn't know himself, and that needs to before he can sit in the beach chair, before all those pieces can be in place, he needs to know himself more. And I think that involves a lot of confronting his past as well. But Marky is an interesting character, and I had her a lot more in the earlier versions, but then she kind of got edited down a bit. My but I would say about her is she kind of represents old Rehoboth. There was, especially when I was young, you would be here and you would see people that they used to live here. They used to be an active part of the town, but you could see them gradually kind of getting pushed away with development and with just things changing, with town progressing and people from the cities coming in buying up everything. So Marky definitely represents that old Rehoboth that she grew up here, and she's figuring out a way to still live in this place that's no longer like her home. I almost wanted her to have this kind of mystical quality too, that she almost like understood Jack in this odd way. um, yeah, and so Marky kind of represents that, I guess.
Yeah, she seemed like someone who, and there's a word for it, but like the person who has like the wisdom or the
Like the sage prophet or
yeah, or
something.
something where I don't know, yeah, that's interesting. Okay, thank you. I don't know if that's too random. I just that
No,
line
thank you for
jumped out
caring, and
that line
uh,
jumped out at me and I just was like, oh, like I don't know, it just stood out.
and thank you for reading the books and for what you said about the ordinary. I love to think about just illuminating the ordinary. I think ordinary people are the most interesting people. I mean, I think Elizabeth Strout's newest book really highlights that every family has an interesting story. Every neighbor has an interesting story. Um, that we're all carrying around this stuff.
Do you think that some of the characters that you had set out to essentially include, like at the beginning of the book that you ended up scrapping, do you think we might see snippets of those characters in other books, or did you just have to totally say goodbye to them?
I think so. I never give up on something. Usually somebody, if I like something enough, if I like a concept enough, or if I like a line enough or a character enough, they usually end up kind of rearing their heads in somewhere else. Yeah, I don't think I ever say goodbye to them completely. Because I had I think even a name too. Like I had Kitty in a previous work. I don't remember what it was, but I definitely knew that was a name I wanted to use at some point. So then Kitty ended up in the same Bright Stars.
Oh, that's so great.
Yeah, I
Well,
think you just kind of think of it as you're like, if you're, I don't know if you're into, I don't know what that would be, like crafting or something, you would keep scraps of things and maybe you'd be able to use it for like a collage or something later. I think that's what you do with writing. You have all these ideas that maybe they didn't get used in this book, but they'll be there. And I think some of the stories from the book that I kind of threw aside could function as standalone short stories that I could probably publish. But Who
Okay.
has time for that?
I was like, well, maybe you just wrote like 8 different books and you've got your little seeds planted and you're ready to go.
That's a nice idea. I wish.
Kelly said maybe Ziggy can be redeemed in a future book. Maybe.
Oh,
Ziggy, yeah, and Ziggy. If I could just say something about Ziggy too,
yeah.
my this is why when you work with a nice team that supports you is so valuable. So my editor and agent, we've been together through all the books. Even the same cover designer has done all the books. So it's a nice kind of formula there. But my editor said with Ziggy, I had him as much more of a villain in the. I mean, he still is kind of a villain in this book, but he was really a terrible character in my earlier versions. And I had one of his sisters saying to Jack, you know what, Jack, sometimes people are just bad. And my editor was like, Ethan, come on. You don't think that about people. You have to go more deeply into Ziggy and explain why he's acting this way. And I love that she said that it made the book so much better. So I really did, because of her, I went back and had Ziggy, that scene where he wants a dog when he's little and his dad died and he used to sleep in the tent without him. And I mean, I think that just made people understand Ziggy so much more and show addiction as such more, not a kind of binary, easy to explain thing. Sometimes it is about self-medication or about keeping too much to yourself. And I think Ziggy could have been very much, I think Ziggy and Jack had very similar trajectories with losing somebody and being young like that. And Jack went in one way and Ziggy went in another direction.
Yeah, that was a really interesting conversation that we had in our book club surrounding Ziggy. And, are we supposed to judge him by the person that he was and who he became? And is there room for redemption for him? And we kind of all came to the conclusion that knowing somebody's past, does really inform the empathy that you're able to give. And Michelle, one of our reader friends, said, you always, as an author, make readers stretch their empathy muscles or like work their empathy muscles. And yeah, that was certainly true with Ziggy.
I love that.
Yeah, yeah. And we've got in this group, somebody works in the prisons. We have a child like counselor or psychologist in the schools. And so really interesting just to hear their perspectives on how, trauma as a child really can impact adults. Oh, Jessica, it looks like has a question. Go ahead, Jessica.
I don't know if it's so much a question, but I feel like I'm having a bit of an epiphany listening to you talk and based on what I've heard some other authors say about their writing process, in terms of how much you wrote and you kind of scrapped a lot of it, but then you were able to develop this book and these characters. And I wish I could remember. I said earlier I have an awful memory, but I wish I could remember what other author I recently heard speak. And it might have been Claire Lombardo. And she said that like she writes and writes and writes and writes and then like scraps 3/4 of what she's written, but she needed to do it to like get to understand who these people are that end up in the book. And I feel like and I heard some you say something, along those lines. And then just I think what I'm realizing is that I very much like these character driven books, and the ones that are really good are because the authors have spent so much time and the thought that they put into and really building a character. We might not even see the half of what the author has created, but they've done it in such a way that it makes what we see on the page like we can feel it so deeply and believe it so much, and it makes so much sense because there may be all this backstory that you have. We just never see any of it. It's just so interesting to me to understand that like but what goes on that we don't see in the book in addition to what we do see in the book.
Well, thank you, Jessica. It's nice to see you on here too. Yeah, I think that's true. I mean, it's like the saying that easy reading is damn hard writing, that there's so much that goes into it. There's so much that gets scrapped, but it's still a lot of the stuff you throw away, like you said, is still informing the stuff you see there. I forget my not my editor, but the Nan Graham, who's Stephen King's editor. She said something about it, like I don't want to quote her the wrong way, but she said something like it bleeds in between the lines. It's that stuff that you know, or the stuff that you even when you're researching, you don't get to use all of it because that would feel too mechanical sometimes. But it does. I think it does inform the stuff that the reader is seeing, and it makes it richer.
And I just want to say, I don't know what I need to do to get you to Chicago on your next book tour, but whatever it is, let me
Yeah.
know because I will do it.
I would.
Chicago and Milwaukee. Woo
I
woo.
know. I would absolutely love to. I hate that there are things such as budgets with book tours because I wouldn't say no to anything. Any bookstore that wanted me, Texas, Chicago, Minnesota, Wisconsin, wherever I would go.
me some advance notice and
Also,
I'll
just go to
do
dinner
what
and you
I
don't have to do a whole book tour.
do.
That would be amazing. That would just a big dinner
Easy,
or something.
right? You just fly out
I
here, no
feel
problem.
one day I would like to just organize like a road trip or something and just figure out like 5 stops or something and do that. I think that would be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I
Sarah had
think
a question in the comments. She said she enjoyed the theme of second chances and how these were interwoven in a lot of the character stories. How did you decide to make some of the decisions, like Jack going through with retirement and Jack and the ex-wife, Kitty not reuniting?
I think those are the situations that I never. I was just saying that I had a book club this afternoon, and I was just saying that I don't think many readers would understand how much of like trial and error it is with writing that you're just basically that you're throwing it out there and then you're saying, oh, that's not working, and then you try it again. So I think that's a lot of what you do in an episodic way. You're putting the characters into these situations, and seeing where they end up. So I didn't have an exact idea of what would happen with Jack with the restaurant, if he would finally go through with it or not. Um, I just I think that's where when a character comes first, you trust your character and you see where that they're going to lead the plot in those ways. And I think once a character gets fully defined, like someone like Genevieve, you can see her second chance come out that she wants that opportunity to be like the head, the general manager or the big person making the decisions and not having to kind of trip over Jack. So I think once the characters are fully formed, you get to see what actions make sense for them and what kind of rounds them out the most.
Were
I have
there
another question. Oh,
Oh, go
sorry.
ahead. Yeah, nope, go ahead, Rebecca.
Okay. Um, so I really enjoyed, and I don't know if it's my corporate retail background, but I really enjoyed Patrick's sister. I thought she was very strong and clearly tried to be a bridge, but also understood the importance of kind of hands off, and it needed to happen organically. Excuse me. So as we were talking earlier about the other books and your process, and like if you have to say goodbye, you've had 2 books with the interconnected stories, and I know it would have to probably take place if like a character had a vacation, but would you consider writing, like, I don't think you had a sophomore slump. I don't know about the rest of the group, but I don't think it's happened. Would you consider like having a 4th book or a 5th book with some of these Easter eggs thrown in, like this sister having a side story and
Well,
seeing where that takes place, and she makes it back to Rehoboth to see how that intertwines, but she's got her own life, or any other subplot, but having somebody sprinkled back in even from your first book.
well, Lara is one of my favorite types of characters because I had no plans for her at all. I mean, I basically wrote the obituary of Alexis and I thought, well, she can't just have the one kid. What else did she do? And she had these 2 other kids. And I don't know what, I think Jack was just in his office and Lara shows up one day and then I didn't know, I had no idea what I wanted to do with her. But once she came out of nowhere, I just liked her so much. I liked that she had this big chaotic purse that was always kind of spilling out. I liked who Jack was when he was around her. I liked that the way they kind of played off of each other. And then I thought, wow, he got like this unexpected daughter out of this whole thing. Even if it's not working out with Patrick, he kind of got this surrogate daughter, and he calls her to like help him pick out a suit, and she's calling him to like make mashed potatoes or something like that. I forget what the I think he helps her with something with some cooking recipe or something. So yeah, there's so many characters that I would love to revisit. I would definitely like to do a follow-up to the Same Bright Stars, with Jack and Patrick's relationship to see what would happen there, and definitely have Lara in that as well. I do have an interesting thing to tell you that my next book has a cameo from a Quiet Life character, which I was so excited when I could make it happen, and my editor was really supportive of this character showing up. So that's the only thing I'll tell you about that. But it really is it's so neat, and I'm so happy that it worked out.
Thank you.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for caring about the characters.
That's so fun. So Jessica is wondering when your next book is coming out. Can we talk a little bit about what's happening next?
So I
And we
don't
also felt like you were kind of like on like a roll, Little Hope fall, then Quiet Life winter. So is there like a seasonal?
yeah, yeah, so definitely I know it has to have a spring cover, and I've already told them that because we have the summer, fall, winter covers now.
Yeah.
So I feel like that would be just awful to all the readers that have told me. So I actually wrote an extra scene at the end because I had no spring in the book. So I thought I have to add in I have to add in a spring scene to make it so. And I really tried to give. I have no idea, and it's still a work in progress. So I have no idea if any of this will be true. Maybe they'll be like, no, we're not doing the spring cover. I mean, I'm not an island, and I don't get to make the decisions, but I would love to see a spring cover for it. It's like a solid draft, and I've rewritten this book 3 times. I've come back to it different times. I started this book before The Same Bright Stars, and kind of got frustrated with it and put it away. Then I restarted it from the beginning and scrapped all of that and restarted it again this summer. And I worked all summer, like maniacally all summer. I worked on it. So now it's at a solid draft, and I think maybe like summer 2026 it would be out, which
Okay.
feels so long away, and it makes me kind of sad because I got so used to books coming out very quick and very recent. But I think that's when we'll probably see it. I'm not exactly sure yet.
Okay. That's
Worth
exciting.
it.
Yeah, worth the wait. Worth the wait. Yeah, I think I had messaged you and said, yeah, in our last chapters and chats, you had mentioned there's the 3 seasons. Is this springtime? And you were like, ooh. I'm like, just put a
I gotta
tulip,
get.
an actual Easter egg, like would be fine. Just anything. Just
Yeah, I've gotten so many questions about it needing a. It's like the final Infinity Stone that you need you need the spring cover. So I definitely added that extra part at the end, and it really ended up being great. So I'm glad I added it. But I have like cherry blossoms, daffodil, just stuff to give some spring stuff.
perfect. Readers will appreciate that because we have to have the full season, full circle moment.
Yeah, and you never, I mean, the whole publishing industry, you never know what's going to happen next. So I could be completely telling you terrible information. It could have just a black cover with like a spot on it. I don't know.
Well, what do you hope readers take away from this story?
I think it is probably about the whole idea of second chances, and that change can be uncomfortable, but really worth it. I think we have to take risks for our lives to get better sometimes, especially when we feel like things are stagnant. Um, but I think just be open to life and to love, I guess.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. What have you read recently that you have read and
So,
loved? Do you have any recommendations for us?
okay, so Elizabeth Strout's new book. I mean, I'm such an Elizabeth Strout stan. I really love that, and she brought every character together. I mean, the Burgess boys and Olive Kitteridge and Lucy Barton are all in there. I mean, Oprah's not recommending that for nothing. It's a really good book. What else have I read recently? Jason Rekulick's book,
Oh
Hidden
yeah.
Pictures, and now he has a new one coming out. I met him at Lehigh Valley Book Festival a year or two ago, and he was such a nice guy, and he's read all of my books, so I wanted to check out his book, and I love that. It's creepy and it's disturbing, but I really enjoyed it. Like really got into it fast. Anytime, if I can read a book in a week, it's like a miracle. So,
Yes, Hidden
I
Pictures. That
just
was a good
finished
one.
that one. He's actually coming to our book club next month.
oh, nice. He's a really nice guy. Yeah,
Yeah.
I enjoyed meeting him. What else have I read recently? That's I'm reading Motherless by Nikki May. I really liked her book Walhalla before. I think it
Oh,
comes out like next month. Motherless. I'm so bad with titles. Something motherless. I can figure out.
Lands, Motherless Lands.
Motherless Lands.
I think
Um,
that's what it's called.
yeah, I really I like her writing a lot. She blurbed A Quiet Life. She's just such a really generous person. I'm reading that right now and I'm liking that a lot. It's really sad, really devastating, but really good.
Mm, yeah, we love an emotional gut punch, that's for sure.
That's why you're all here tonight with
Yes, here we are. Yeah, you're preaching to the choir. You said that was by Nikki May.
Nikki May, yeah.
Okay.
Nikkimay.
Okay. And it comes out next month.
I think so. I think it's out in the UK already. But
Oh, okay.
I think it's next month here.
I pay
Okay.
attention to all of his recommendations. I think he just got the same author as Black Cake as well, so I just requested
Charmaine
that.
Mulkey. Yeah, I
Yeah,
just got her what's it called? Good Dirt
Good
maybe or
dirt.
yeah.
something.
Mhm.
Yeah. And she's we have the same agent. I mean, she's there and I'm here.
Oh.
But Charmaine is such a generous, nice person. She blurbed, I think, A Quiet Life for me too. But we have a really nice relationship. She's just such a nice person. So I'm excited to read, and I loved Black Cake, so I'm excited to read that one.
Yeah, me too. I think that comes out in January. Good dirt does.
Yeah, all of
Oh,
these.
okay. Does it? Yeah.
Yep. Yep. Does anyone else have any more questions before we wrap up? I saved a little time for you. So if you've got any questions before we wrap things up, now is the time.
I
I
love
mean,
this group, and I love seeing all the Instagram handles. That's so helpful because sometimes I feel so bad. Like someone will come to a book signing, and I know them by their profile photo, and I know them by their name,
there,
and I can't make that connection in real life. And then afterward, I'm like, oh, that's yeah. So it's really nice. Everybody has theirs on here.
yeah, yeah. I know I feel the same way sometimes. So
I also have to say how much your like 80s and 90s posts mean to me. They're so good. Every time I see them, I'm like either I laugh out
Oh yeah,
loud or I'm
like the
yes.
Small Wonder, like the Vicky with
Yes,
Small Wonder.
That
Vicky the robot.
I sent
Not
that.
and
Yeah.
Rebecca knows
Rebecca had one
Vicky
the
for the
other day,
robot.
but
Yeah, she's
Not many people.
such a weird show.
it
Oh
really
my
was.
gosh,
It was.
I would go for like weeks and only talk like Vicky the robot to my brother, and it would drive him crazy.
Well, that's
But
what
I
I'm
can't
waiting
believe
for Ethan to do, like a 90s, late 80s nostalgia book.
I know. I
that.
would love.
That's
I
some of
would
those things.
definitely like to do that. It wouldn't require any research, right?
no.
That show was so interesting too because it was really low budget. The set was very simple. I think the parents' bedroom and the living room was like the exact same
Yeah,
set. I just always noticed weird things like that
that's
growing up, but
all we
I love
needed.
that show.
That was like right after an Elf was around the same time, all those shows. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Kristen asked where she's curious where you teach.
So I teach at University of Delaware, but I also teach for a number of schools. I develop online courses, so that has worked out. I've taught in person, but I've taught online for the last 20 years as well.
Hmm.
I was actually wanting to know what you teach.
Oh, I'm sorry. I teach
Very
English and
interesting there.
psychology.
English and psychology. Okay.
Yeah, I also have background in international development and political science. So, but English is my sweet spot, and psychology goes nicely with creative writing too.
Yeah, definitely. So you were like beating the Zoom crowd before it was even like
You know,
2020 happened. You were like, I got this online teaching down.
my wife and I both started developing online classes like in 2003. So when 2020 came with COVID, we were like, we got this.
You're like a bunch of
We
rookies out here.
we had to train so many colleagues and and kind of comfort them and tell them it would be okay and show them how easy it would be. It was really bad. Yeah.
Comfort them, yeah. Kelly, what's your question? You got one.
It's really not a question. It's just a quick comment. I mean, you're talking about second chances, and I'm the one whose brother owned a restaurant, and it is like your like you said, he had a couch there where like your friend Scott, where I mean, you literally, it's like you're almost like your second home. So what I was going to say is the comment was the second chance was he was so afraid maybe to give up that dream, that thing that was such a concrete thing in his life for so many years. But yet once he did and he made that leap or whatever, but because that's what my brother did. He was just did not want to get rid of his restaurant. That was his dream for so long. But once he did, now he's in this other place that is really actually so much better for his health, his everything else, his wife, his his kids and everything. So
Yeah,
and I said that to my husband one night when I was like, see this guy, he does what he wants. He does this big leap. And he looked at me, he goes, what are you gonna do? You gonna leave? I said, I don't know, maybe I'll write a book. And he just kind of chuckled. So anyway, but I thought I'd say that I do like how you give your characters that in this book especially, like the second chances thing, and just you can make that leap and still be happy and
I think
have a
you
dream
should.
come true.
Oh, thanks, Kelly. And I think you should definitely write your book. This is your sign to write it. Um, yeah, I think that, and Scott, who I interviewed, I think the only way he can keep that going is that the restaurant is only open seasonally. Like it's only open from May until September, that he just thinks, all right, I'm kind of dead to the world for these months, but at least then I have some downtime in the other months. And I think it is there are trade-offs for it, but I think that's
Yeah.
maybe an okay thing, but I can't imagine the situation where you just 7 days a week, 80 hours a week doing something like that. It's so grueling.
Yeah.
But Jack's identity is really tied to the restaurant. And even when he sees Kitty's mom in the store when he buys the beach chair and she says, how are you doing? And he talks about the restaurant and she says, no, not the restaurant, you, how are you doing? It's his identity is so tied up in that.
Yes. Yes.
All right. Well, let's snap a picture if we are able to before we sign off. If you've got a book,
I will.
got it. Good. Good. I've got it on my phone here. Okay. Ivana, are you going to lead the charge?
Yes, I sure will.
Okay, thank you.
Command Shift 4, in case anybody's wondering how to do it.
Command Shift 4. Okay.
Command Shift 4. Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3.
Jeez.
There you go. Got
Well,
it.
Ethan, thank you so much. It was a delight, and we are just your biggest fans, and we hope nothing but the best for you. We're so excited for this book to finally be out, and just hope that it continues to receive all the warm reception and love.
Well, thank you all. I
And if
love
you
this
have a
group and I really appreciate all the support and thank you, especially Kelly and Ivana. I just always look forward to talking to you all.
Well, thank you, and we'll be on the lookout for your spring book.
Let's hope.
luck with everything.
Thank you all. I'll see you on the gram, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
good to see you.
Have a good night.
Bye,
Bye, everyone.
Ethan.
Thanks.